Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome back, entrepreneurs, to another exciting episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better. And whether you're just starting out or you're a mid-level entrepreneur ready to scale to new heights, this episode is going to be packed with valuable insight tailored just for you. We are thrilled to introduce a guest who's not only walked the walk of entrepreneurial path, but is also paving the way for others. He is the co-founder of QuickTix, which is transforming the event industry with digital ticketing platform that simplifies the complex world of event management. And not only that, he's also the founder of Grigorescu, the passion for creating strategies that has helped countless businesses unlock new levels of growth. He's going to be here today sharing his journey. Today he's here sharing his journey, the challenges, the breakthroughs, and most importantly, the lessons he's learned that can help you navigate your own entrepreneurial adventure. Whether you're figuring out your next move or looking to take your business to the next level, this episode is going to be a must listen for you. So today, let's give a big, warm welcome to our guest, Ovi. Ovi, thank you. I screwed up your
Ovi, that's okay.
Ovi, sorry, Ovi. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to have you.
Thank you very much, and that was a very warm welcome. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You're a fellow Canadian, so I felt like I needed to up the ante just slightly compared to the other guests that I have. Ovi, we're gonna jump straight into it because I want to know what made you decide to jump into the world of entrepreneurialism.
Yeah, it wasn't really a direct. It's not like I woke up one morning and I just decided, today this is the day I'm just going to start my business. I think it all kind of starts with the fact that I've always had a hyperactive mind, and so I always tinker with stuff. Ever since I was a kid, I just always tinker with stuff, right? Like while I'm playing video games, I would sit there and like watch the neighbor do the mow their lawn and figure out like, hey, I could save him the time and whatever. So it's just, there's always ideas. And usually when I get an idea, I feel the need to scratch that itch and to just explore it. Right. So really, even in high school and even throughout school and while I had a corporate career, in the evenings, I always tinkered with something. Right. So, in university, I went to the University of Waterloo, and even then, we at the time we were my roommates and I we were doing parties and things like that just to kind of bring the world together, and it was just something that kind of took our minds off of school, and eventually we actually kind of made it a bit of a side hustle as well because we figured, well, now we know everyone. We're the guys that people come to for a guy, basically, right? So we figured out that we could actually pay some bills that way, and it was fantastic. It was one of the most fun side hustles I've ever had, right? And once I got into my corporate world job, my big boy job, that's when I kind of started playing and tinkering around with tech projects, and I kind of learned how to do some front end development. I got into obviously into AI for a while. And these things, a lot of the times I wasn't really looking to make a quick buck. It's just kind of exploratory, right? So it's more about the process where you follow your own intuition, you follow your own curiosity, and eventually you get to a bit of an aha moment. And just as an example, QuickTix, which is the first business that I co-founded that I'm going full-time into, that didn't really come as, hey, I have an idea, let's build this business. First of all, it was actually not even my idea. It was the original founder's idea, Jason. And he was working on a tool for the Kinesis Lake Marina up in Cottage Country in Ontario. And the whole point was he needed a ticketing system to help the marina run a bunch of events in the summer because they thought they were going to pay way too much with what's currently available. I don't know if I'm technically allowed to
If
say.
you want to say it, as long as we don't derogatorize them, we're fine.
No,
But if you don't,
absolutely. Yeah.
you
So
don't want
obviously
to.
the biggest player on the market at this level is Eventbrite. For the smaller businesses, for things that are not arenas that
Ticketmaster takes a big cut out of.
exactly. So there's really two layers, and for that second layer, the marina kind of thought, there's way too many fees involved, especially for things the size that they ran, because they did run like 500 people events several times a summer. So they kind of threw the idea at Jason. They're like, hey, if you build something in house, like we might as well give you the fees. So he built it, and at the time I was, we're good friends, and we're kind of talking about it, and he ended up spinning this thing in a way where his friends that are in a band can also use this to book their own concerts, and that kind of just spread word of through word of mouth. And that's when we kind of had an idea. We're like, dude, we could totally just spin this into a proper business, because people are definitely not happy with the amount of fees they got to pay if all they need to do is set up a nice little page and have a payment processing in place and a way to make sure that people have their tickets and that they can be, scanned in or out or checked in or out. So really that was almost a 15-year process just of tinkering with things until we found a pretty obvious market fit. And I'm very happy to say that at this point we've only really been out of beta and in proper release since August. And just in the beta testing alone, we cleared $76,000 worth of ticket volume, just word of mouth. And yeah, which was a bit crazy. And now we're on track to do 100,000, in the first 5-6 weeks since the release, in terms of pure volume of tickets sold. So, you know, really, I kind of fell onto the opportunity just by being curious enough. And it definitely helped that I can do 3 elevator pitches, in the time you do an elevator pitch, because we can just go, hey, you know what's out there? We do exactly that. We're just a quarter of the fees.
I love that. I love that. And you bring so much value because, yes, we have Ticketmaster, which is owns the top end. They own the biggest piece of the pie. You have, Eventbrite that's kind of like in mid-level volume, but we don't have small for the really small people, like the mom and pop bar that may not be able to do so many events but wants to have a ticketing center. You guys are coming out here and setting it up, but also on the flip side, you're helping independent artists as well
Yes.
have keep most of the fees and not lose it to the big corporations, if you will, that just dominate and take all the money from these small businesses. I love how you're supporting these small businesses, because I truly believe small businesses are the backbone of this country and deserve more. Um, Not only do you run Quick Ticks, but you also have a growth agency. How did that? How did your curiosity, if you will, because it seems curiosity didn't kill this cat, but created a new world. How did your curiosity bring you to start a growth agency?
Yeah, so it's called Growth, but really it's an online marketing agency, and this was kind of a COVID project that's still going very strong. So really, that one kind of stemmed from spending years and years and years online on social media, and my friends and I, we I'll be honest, we were addicted to our phones for as long as iPhones have been a thing. So, being in the exact age group where memes were a thing and whatnot, we ended up not just loving the meme culture, but we ended up just running a lot of uh, pages, right? And I believe the term for it, and you can bleep this out if you'd like, it is called shit posting. So, so we got really good at that, to a point where I kind of, again, like during COVID, I was just in the shower one day and thinking to myself, going like, "Hey, I guess I have an idea of what makes people tick, and I wonder, could I use that knowledge to actually, like, for good, to essentially help companies and people who could really benefit from this to get some really good social media growth on their pages with minimal ad spend. So that's exactly what I did, right? I kind of called a few friends with businesses and whatnot, and one thing led to another. And one of the biggest clients I had from almost the beginning and to this day is actually the Chicago Thanksgiving Parade.
Wait. You
So
have the Chicago Thanksgiving Parade as one of your clients.
yes. So if you go to their social medias, I am the guy behind the screen that responds to you and that makes all the posts and whatnot. And this year, I also have the opportunity to help them out with outreach to sponsors and whatnot, which has been going amazing. So that part of the business, it's more of it's still the side business, I would say. The only reason I never really considered it to go full-time into it is because right now I can't really think of a way to scale it properly, because a marketing agency really is me, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I could hire people and then I can train people, but I'm not entirely sure I can see a path where there's good enough profitability without too much of a risk factor to really go off on my own. Like, really, there would be nothing stopping someone that I train to just kind of go and do that on their own, right? So that's sort of why I'm just keeping it on the side. And I kind of decided last year, when I ended up biting more than I could chew, that I'm just going to keep it to the levels where I'm actually having fun with it.
Okay, so you're keeping it more as a, this is just play money that's coming in. You're more focused on growing quick ticks and making that the name for small to medium sized artists.
That is exactly correct. Yeah. And funny enough, you would think that if I have experience with internet marketing, then that would probably be the way that I'm trying to grow this thing. But no, I actually completely tried to flip this thing on its head and go with almost no online marketing for them yet. And all I do is personal outreach. So I quite literally mean I walk the main street, I knock on doors, I go to every single bar, and I talk to the managers. I find numbers for schools and places that could use this thing, and I book meetings that way. And part of the reason why I'm doing that is because I think the internet marketing part is going to be really, really useful and really effective once I get a bit of a network effect happening on Quick Ticks. So right now we're growing. We have several dozen active customers that do their own events on a regular basis. However, we want to first get to a point where, at least in Ontario, we have enough events where you can have 2 to 3 events near you at any time in most major cities. And then from there on, we're really going to kick in with the internet marketing phase.
I like that. I like building the base, building that solid foundation before you decide to, take what as the nitro of internet marketing and putting it behind the business and then exploding the brand. Was that a deliberate decision that you and your co-founder decided on, or was that something that just fell into place? Like it just organically just happened that we're going to keep this small for now before we bring in the internet marketing?
Well, we're a fully bootstrapped startup, so that means really all the expenditures until we're seeing some revenue come out of our own pockets. And like, now we're starting to get a little bit of a trickle, which is really nice. But the idea there was, even as we get this trickle, let's not spend more than we can make, because that is often the death of a startup, right? So we figured out that we can make money on very low fees and still be profitable. And we figured, let's not get greedy. Let's do this the right way rather than the growth way, where, again, we would bite off more than we can chew. And let's try it out. And it's all sort of, again, it's all experiments. It's all things that we are tinkering with. And it seems to be a pretty successful experiment. But obviously, if it wasn't going to work, then we definitely would have gone to plan B, where, you know, we would start putting in a little bit of ads, a little bit more of a focus on growth on social media, also with, you know, just regular posting and whatever we can get organically.
I like that. With your hustle, because right now you're in like that hustle stage of growth where you're trying to connect to the people who need to be connected to you before you open the floodgates. What has been the kind of response from these potential, not only customers but consumers, uh, to a digital ticketing software coming in the old school, non-virtual way, but like knocking in the physical door and saying, "Hey, how's it going? I run a virtual ticketing company and I want to help you out." Like, it's usually virtual companies are reaching out virtually, and here you are doing the old-fashioned door knocking. How has the reception been?
Yeah, so I started doing this mid-August, right? So again, we just kind of got out of the beta phase, and we finally have the initial V1 of the product out. And as you know, in Canada, mid-August is often the least busy corporate time of the year.
Mhm.
And that actually applies to a lot of small businesses, a lot of schools, and even a lot of bars. You know, like a lot of the owners take vacation off, even if they're super busy, because they have the staff whatever to run it. So first couple of weeks, I'll be honest, they were brutal. Like, I think I got one meeting in the first week and another two the next week, after like, you know, hundreds of door knocks and calls and whatnot. So initially I thought, oh gosh, I might have done the wrong thing. And then September kicked in, and, you know, literally as soon as Labor Day um, ended, I just started booking. I would say, you know, I would get like maybe a 20% rate of success in terms of getting those meetings, getting those face to faces and whatnot. So it got significantly better. And so far, I would say once I actually managed to get my foot in the door with the person that makes the decisions, um, so far the response has been almost 100% positive, in that it seems like a good idea. And then about half of them just go through with it and decide to check us out. And the biggest factor at that point, in terms of, you know, what I kind of got to, my biggest enemy that I got to defeat when it comes to the other half, is I find it's really comfort, right? So it's like, oh, you know, they already trained their staff, like everything is already set up, it works well enough. They're not willing to put their time in for that. So, you know, I'll be, I don't know how open normally business owners might be about little issues like these, but right now that is definitely something that I'm actively working on how to solve. I think I have a few ideas. I don't want to say them out loud yet, because I haven't tried anything new yet from that perspective. But that is one of the pivot points right now, in terms of how do I tweak a little bit the offer message in order to really convert those who are also just not willing to, out of just pure comfort.
I like how you're using positive words for some of the struggles you're facing, like their comfort instead of being, stubborn, or set in their ways. I prefer, I like those positive switches to some potentially negative emotional feelings that some people may have when looking at something new. um has that been something, because I've noticed it a few times during this episode, that you're very particular with the language that you use a more positive oriented language. Is that something that you've consciously done, or is that something that's been part of your life since you were young?
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how to
Positively say the
explain
sentence.
this. No, no, no. It's there's actually quite a bit of a story to it. So I'm actually an immigrant, right? I'm originally from Romania, and I think I was telling you right before we started recording that I lived in Quebec for a long time. So when we came to Canada, my second language was actually French, And then when we moved to Ontario, it was beginning of grade 9, and that's when I had to learn English. So I essentially, it's almost like I had to immigrate twice in a sense, because as you know as well, especially if you get off the island in Montreal, it's quite a different culture in terms of English and French Canada. So really, I had to kind of be the immigrant of an immigrating family twice in a row, and that kind of forced me to just kind of sit down and really observe the people, because I really, by the time I got in Ontario, I really felt this need that I needed to belong. You know, I needed to integrate properly. I needed to hide the fact that I'm from somewhere else, because I was just kind of tired of it at that point. It's like I had already done all this legwork to fit in Quebec, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of thrown into another place. So I think that experience just naturally taught me how to adapt, and how to adapt to the situations in order to best fit what either I need, or my team needs, or anything like that. And I'm also very lucky in the sense that I love people. I'm super extroverted.
I couldn't tell. Couldn't tell from the energy. No way to know that.
I know. Surprising. Yeah, like there's 3 of us working at QuickTix right now. There's the 2 of us, the co-founders, and we have another guy who's on a bit of a contract basis. And you know, when we were kind of talking about who's going to take on the business development part of it, we kind of all laughed and we're like, well, Ovi can't shut the heck up. It's all yours, buddy. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that energy. And I can feel that there's, just through how you're talking about QuickTix and how you're talking about your team, there's this great positivity, and there's a positivity for the future, because you know who you're helping, and you're locked in on helping those small businesses, which is something I think is truly Canadian, helping the smaller people. Always, it's a Canadian trait, helping. You know, we did it on 9/11, we did it all throughout history. And it's great. I had no idea you were an immigrant from Romania, but seeing that trait in not only just an immigrant, but someone who is embracing the Canadian lifestyle, is it's a lot of fun to see, because I just proves how great Canadians are. I'm just saying it as a bred Canadian. But what have you done since you are an immigrant? Like, you have this go-getter attitude, because you do, like you said, you came over, you had to rebuild in essence once, you had to rebuild nearly a second time, or build up on the foundation. What do you do to keep yourself pushing forward? Like, what do you do to invest in yourself? Because that's a lot of kind of like stress on not only a young child, but also as a business owner, you know, that moving and all that. You had that durability, but what else do you do to invest in yourself to stay ahead?
Well, I'm naturally a very chaotic person, and I feel like that might sound, again, right, what a surprise. And so counterintuitively, the way I thrive is by bringing as much structure as I can to my life. So that kind of, you know, it includes dealing with making sure that I have scheduled downtimes when I'm not just sitting on the couch and on my phone, but it's like, you know, this is the scheduled downtime where you're going to go meditate for 20 minutes. You're going to sit in silence, and you're going to think of nothing, because there's already too much going on. And also the same thing with staying active, right? So I'm sure you've heard this before, but being active, it almost becomes addictive. And that also just has an insanely incredible effect on your mental health, right? I also have a family. So I got married during COVID. I have now a 1.5-year-old. And that also kind of forced me to really bring the structure into my life, because, you know, family is still very important. And I once heard Mark Zuckerberg way back basically saying that he structures his family time. And that kind of, this was way before I got married. And so I remembered it a few years later and thinking, you know, if this guy can do it, I can. If this guy can do it, and he's definitely way busier than I am. I'm not saying I'm not busy, you know, like it's still like 12-hour days plus sometimes. But that doesn't mean that I can't do it. because there's clearly a guy that has it even harder from that perspective, and it's doable. So if one human can do it, I might as well try it. Some people are better at it than others, but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying because it's feasible. And then, yeah, the other thing that really gets me going is, and really has been helping me, has been putting my phone down at 9 p.m. and reading. So I managed to get through 2 to 3 books a month. It used to be a little bit more than that, and then I got busier.
A child apparently showed up. That can cause some busyness, I hear.
Yeah, indeed. And that, I find, has been insanely beneficial, because as I read more, I get more ideas, and I'm able to kind of apply more things into my life. So one of the books that I read shortly after I graduated was The Power of Habit. And I think there's another one called Atomic Habits. So for those who read Atomic Habits instead, it's very similar. It's a very similar content, just slightly different put. And yeah, what I really got from that was the whole idea of a cornerstone habit, right? And I realized if I put the phone down at 9 a.m. and read, that's already a good cornerstone habit. At 9 p.m. and read, it's a good cornerstone habit because it forces me to go to bed on time. And then if I go to bed on time and I wake up and I do my exercises very first thing in the morning, then that way I'm sure that I'm ready for the day, because now I'm exercised. I can kind of keep myself sane in terms of everything that's about to come at me for the day. And so I'd say I implemented that really early on in my corporate career as I started my corporate job. And to this day, that self-improvement that just comes from books and from the ideas that I can take from them, is still paying incredible amounts of dividends.
I want to know, because you mentioned books. What is a book you're reading right now on your nightside table, if you will, that can the audience can take away from?
Right now, I am reading my one book a year that's a novel.
Oh,
So I'm in the middle of Dune.
ooh,
I'm just
Dune's
about
such a
halfway
great
through
book.
Dune. I've never seen the movies, so I wanted to read the book before I watch the movie.
You'll be disappointed.
Oh,
Only because the book is a master. It's like the book, like you've read it, right? Or you're in the process of reading
yeah,
how amazing the book is. It will
incredibly
be
well done.
right. It's impossible to transfer to visual because of how Frank Hubert Dune wrote it. But the Dune movie is fantastic. Like, it's beautifully done. Villeneuve did an amazing job. However, it's just like comparing, like, you know, Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece to someone else's trying to copy it. Like, it just
Right.
doesn't fit. Like, they're both beautiful works, but
Yeah.
they're
If
different.
you want, I can talk about a previous book that I
Yes,
read a few
please.
months ago. It's the 100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy.
Ah,
And when you check out Alex Hormozy on the internet, for anyone who already has, I feel like that usually the first impression is, oh, it's just another internet guru. Like, great, right? But he actually, like, most of the content is free.
mhm.
Most of the incredible advice that he has, it's already out there. His whole idea is he's trying to get enough people at a certain level of business that he can then actually make the big bucks working with big businesses. So really, he's trying something very new in the world of business, which is he's trying to increase his own market by himself by showing people how to start their own businesses properly, which
Yeah.
is a really interesting concept. So 100 million offers at the time. I guess now it's like $10, but at the time it was like 99 cents. And I was like, you know what? It's a short book. Let's check it out. And I was kind of shocked to see just the amount of insanely well crafted advice. Like, it's almost like he holds you by the hand and he goes, "This is how you're gonna do this," right? Which is such like, I've paid much more for other books, for other business books that weren't anywhere close to that. So uh, that book, it kind of helped me find the right market, where I would kind of find easy pickings, right? And that's how I recognized quick ticks, because I was like, the market is ripe. Everyone's complaining about fees. This is going to be an easy conversion. Also teaches you how to easily understand your own value proposition and how to make it really simple for your customers, and also just how to turn initial no's into yeses, right? So on that last point, one of the things that I'm kind of doing right now with Quick Ticks is, it turns out I found this pattern where a lot of people are ready to jump ship from other services because they figured they thought they were paying all this money in order to be part of that network effect that they have. And it turned out that nobody actually buys their tickets off of that website. They buy their tickets off of social media. So there's no point in paying the extra fees if they can get a lower fee place and they just do all of their advertising on their own. And so I actually have a couple of customers at this point who, they were initially reluctant and all of that because they weren't ready to jump ship. They were just mad that it wasn't working for them yet. And that's when I kind of realized, I was like, you know what, I can offer you some free consulting from Regrowth. I can help you figure out how to sell out your events with minimal ad spend. Like, take whatever difference it is you were paying between us and Quick Ticks, between Quick Ticks and whatever else you were using, put that in ad spend. You don't need much more than that. And you're going to end up making so much more money because I can help you actually sell your stuff out instead of having, a 60, 70% show up rate. So that ended up being a really, really cool tip that, I'm more than happy to share with the audience as well, which is, figure out if the first no is another problem you can solve. See if it makes financial sense for you to just throw that in as a freebie, instead of trying to further lower your price or really race all the way down to the bottom in terms of your own revenues. Just increase the value of your offer. So that's what I did, and that gave me a few incredible partnerships so far.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love how I'm in the process of reading Home Rosie's book, 100 Million Offers, because it's always good to come back to a book that's helped you out every once in a while. And I don't know if you've read his second book, 100 Million Leads. It's
I'm
another
halfway
fantastic.
through it.
You're halfway through it. It's a
But
fantastic, again, another hand holding all the way through a book. It's fantastic.
yeah,
And one that I need to revisit. But he is, I have to agree with you. He's selling the barn in hopes that you'll come get the feed from him in
yeah.
the future. It's a
And just
genius.
for context for the audience, the reason why I'm halfway through it is because I'm reading it on the Kindle app on the computer so that I can actually take notes at the same time. So I'm really treating this thing like an online course in the form of a book. So it's not my part of my 9 p.m. read time.
It's part of your workday read time.
Exactly.
I like that. I like that. Ovi, we're coming to the end of the episode, and it's despicable that we have to end our fun time here because you've been just dropping great pieces of advice for the audience and your stories. But we're gonna get to the last question here. Of your 10-year-old self here, I know it's only maybe a few years away from where you are right now, but of your 10-year-old self here. But we'll look at it. You're starting a young family, so it's probably good ideas to start thinking about this type of advice for future story or future conversations you're going to have. But what's one piece of advice you would love to be able to hand back to your 10-year-old self?
Nothing that you can do right now is the end of the world. It can always feel like it's the end of the world because the class just laughed at you, or you missed an assignment because, well, when I was 10, I had just come to Canada, so there was a lot of language barriers, right?
There's a few barriers to stopping you from finishing all the assignments.
Yes, but I would really say I don't think I'm unique in terms of the fact that every child feels like when something bad happens, it's the end of the world. That's it, like nothing's ever gonna be okay again. So I would say just learn to accept that life doesn't actually become that important until 18 or until you start university or something, and just try your best. breathe a little, look around, and when it feels like it's the end of the world, just remember tomorrow's another day.
I love that. That's such great advice. Even for entrepreneurs today, need to remember that the sun will rise tomorrow. It's not
Yep.
the end of the world if you make a mistake, because again, like you said, tomorrow's a new day. Ovi, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you for if they're looking for their business that has space to rent and they're looking for a place they sell tickets, or they may be looking to grow businesses through either way. How can we get in contact with you, and how can we use your amazing services?
Yeah, you can find me at quicktix.ca. That's QUIKTIX.ca for the event ticketing services. You can find me at grigrowth.com, where you can fill a form and let me know what your marketing needs are, if that is something you're interested in. And otherwise, you can follow the story of QuickTix or my entrepreneurial journey with QuickTix on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Ovi, I want to thank you so much for being a guest. I love connecting with entrepreneurs, not only just around the world, but specifically in Canada. And if anybody didn't know, this was Ovi's first podcast. I'm very happy to have been his, comrade in this journey. So, Ovi, you did an amazing job. I couldn't tell this was your first podcast.
I appreciate it, Phil. And to be honest, I was very, very nervous, but you actually have a really good way of putting people at ease. So I also want to say, congratulations on the way you run the podcast, because I think this would have went a lot different if it felt like I was just walking into a set and start.
Well,
So
I'm
thank you for
glad.
that.
Oh, you are very, very welcome. I like to make a very welcoming podcast location for people, be it their first or their 100th episode they've been on. Thank you so much for being here. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to connect with OV and Quick Picks and Regrowth and all that, so that you can take your stuff to the next level. I thank you so much for listening. And as always, remember to invest in yourself.